So we're here at the Underground. Welcome, Bob Brozman.
Very happy to be here.
Crossroads. You've also brought along one of your many, many instruments today. Could you start by telling us a little bit about this instrument, and how is it that you, somebody who grew up in New York in the 1950s and 60s, how is it that you wound up playing an instrument like this and not like, say, Elvis Presley or the Beatles?
Well, I started playing guitar when I was 5 years old. I had one lesson. I'm still having it. I'm 51 now. And when I was about 12, I first heard the music of these metal guitars, which were made in the 1920s, before the electric guitar. And I was very attracted to it. Found one in New York City. And this instrument has led to a very beautiful life path for me. I mean, what I was attracted to about this instrument, and it continue to be, is the dynamic range. A wood guitar and a solid body electric guitar, if you hit it soft, if you hit it hard, you don't get much difference. With this thing, I can be all the way from a whisper, all the way to a... And so, I'm not a great guitar player, but this instrument has led me to really learn how to shape sound to make a really interesting show. And we live in a world of compressed music where everything dynamically stays the same from the beginning of the song to the end of the song. It makes it very easy for me. So it's led me down this path of from blues to Hawaiian to Caribbean to becoming a guitar anthropologist and discovering that music happened in a certain way all around the world. And it's interesting to me that the more crappy pop music is becoming, my career is just going great because there's always going to be smart people that want to see a real human being do something real with their hands.
Okay, so is the blues then where you started originally, and how did you become exposed to it then?
I just heard blues. I come from a leftist New York family. My uncle had a club in New York City called Cafe Society, where a lot of jazz people played. It was the first place in America to have black and white people on stage at the same time. And so there was a lot of music in my background. No musicians in my family at all. And when I first heard blues, it just got me, you know, and really the one blues artist that still makes me feel like a little kid with a knife in my heart is Charlie Patton. All the other guys pale in comparison for me. And I know for modern people it's quite difficult to listen to it. It's a little crackly, it takes some commitment, but man, it's really deep stuff. And see, there's Western music and classical music, and then there's everything else. And the everything else has stuff in it that I really love, because a lot of guitar players and a lot of musicians pass their whole life thinking that 100% of music is just the notes and the scales, and you get through that list of events and you've done the song. I don't believe that. For me, that's only 20%. And the other 80% is comprised of rhythm and groove, and the real hidden part of music, which is how do you feel and what are you doing about it with your muscles in your hands. And any musician that you love has succeeded in figuring that out. And because I play a dynamic instrument and I use a microphone and I don't plug in, my whole life is I do everything with my muscles. And so there's no halfway when I'm playing. I really have to be committed. And I'm 51 and I'm in really good shape just from music.
Now, you mentioned before when we were talking that you use very heavy gauge strings. Mm-hmm. Is that something that the original blues artists, say Charlie Patton, did as well?
Well, in those days, there wasn't really different gauges of strings available, and the rule of thumb was among old Hawaiians, blues guys, everywhere, before there were tuners and things like that, you would tune the strings as high as you could before they'd break, because that's when your instrument would be the loudest. So, as it turns out, all over the world, though, the old blues guys tuned in open tuning, which means an open chord. For people who don't play the guitar, what they call European standard tuning, if you're a native and your guitar washes up on shore, this is what it sounds like when you strum it. Not a beautiful chord. So all over the world, not just in Mississippi, but in Hawaii, in Africa, even in Papua New Guinea, where I've just been, Brazil, everywhere, the least number of turns of the least number of tuning pegs brings you to this. And suddenly, you can play guitar with one finger, you know. after that, people in Africa, people in Hawaii, they all figured out you could get every major and minor with 2 fingers. And so, for me, as an ethnomusicologist, of course I'm interested about what's different, but I'm also very interested about what is the same with different cultures, because at a certain point, if every culture has a certain idea or a certain musical idea, it's not cultural, it's biological. So that really, all the traveling I've done, I've been in over 60 countries, and I love the human race and fascinated by how music has traveled.
Okay. Now you said that you originally moved more or less from blues, and the next step was maybe getting into Hawaiian music, the whole history of Hawaiian music. Can you talk a little bit about, or explain how Hawaii or the Hawaiian music influenced the early blues recordings, particularly the use of slide?
Well, that's a fascinating thing, because I think if you leave a human being and a hard object and a string alone in a room, they're going to slide. It's a natural urge. So nobody really knows who did it first, the blues guys or the Hawaiian guys or the Indian guys. Nobody really knows. However, once phonograph records got out, suddenly you have the possibility of musicians hearing music from other cultures, and that's really interesting. The blues guys saw touring Hawaiian acts and started playing on their lap, some of them, like Casey Bill Weldon. And Hawaiians heard blues and jazz records, and they started playing St. Louis blues on their lap. So there's a real period of fertilization going on there. I think one of the reasons why Robert Johnson is so interesting to people is because he was the first blues guy of the phonograph record generation. That guy sat down, just like any of us in the 60s, and listened to records and tried to copy them. And that's why modern people can relate to him. Charlie Patton just woke up and played music in the morning. So for me, there's a real social thread as well. I mean, all of this music around the world, there's only 2 kinds of people who colonize and people who are colonized. And all the colonizing people, they love to march. That's why polka, disco, techno, Britney Spears, it's all march music. If you count to 4 in German at the disco, it's march music, I'm sorry. And the hi-hat part goes stupid, 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 and it works. In the rest of the world, the colonized people, they don't follow the beat, they react to it. So everything that happens in blues, in jazz, in swing, in African, in Latin, in all kinds of music, the "and" is the important thing. It's much sexier. And so for me, there's a social thread of human beings overcoming difficult situation with music. So with blues, you've got that very soulful sort of, But in Hawaiian music, you might have a similar kind of vibe. It's more tropical, but it's like. That's a very similar sort of vibe. The one's a little sweeter, but you have to feel the same way inside to play slowly like that.
Right. Now you're using, I guess, what is a plexiglass slide?
No,
am I guessing?
I made this in 1967 when I was 13 on Long Island. It's a Métis Rosé bottle. They stopped making this bottle in 1973, and this should be in the Guinness Book of World Records, 30-something years with the same slide.
So you believe in really using a bottleneck in the literal sense?
Yeah, because the green in the glass it gives it more weight. Whatever material makes the glass green, it just makes it heavier and more dense. So it just gives a nice sustain.
And what were the Hawaiians using? Were they using a bottleneck like the early?
No, they were
blues guys?
using a solid bar and playing like this. Oh, that's the wrong one. So they would play much more like this. Let's see. And then the blues guys would also be playing on their lap, a lot of stuff the same, a lot of stuff different.
Okay, so in recent years, you've been really traveling the whole world, Africa, Asia, Australia, engaged in, I guess you'd call a musical exchange. You've really come up with some fascinating tales of your travels through the world, particularly in Africa. Could you tell me about a particular concert? I think it was in Djibouti that you played, an outdoor concert.
Yeah. Well, I'm self-taught in French, and that's the language that's spoken there. They're the colonizers. And actually now I'm self-taught in a lot of languages. It's just like music. And we arrived in this place. I was playing with René Lacaille and his group from La Réunion, which is a little island east of Madagascar. It's an incredible music. And we arrived, and there was a rickety little stage in the middle of a big, huge field of dirt, and there were 20 chairs in the middle, apparently for the local dignitaries. And then 500 meters of black dirt, and then a perimeter of police holding back about 10,000 people. So I'm sort of an anarchist, and I got up there and said, "We're here to play for everybody. Come on forward." And the police just reduced their perimeter very frantically until it was just around the little dignitary chairs, and people were jammed up right up to the stage, and it was intense. There was like a ring of police around the stage, but it's not a country that has a lot of music. There were people that actually walked up to us earlier in the day and said, "What is the objective of this evening?" Well, the objective is we've come to play some music for you. So yeah, I highly recommend third world travel for anybody from a Western country. To really kind of opens your eyes up about what's really going on in this world.
Right. You have something which you call the Global Music Aid Foundation. I think that was also kind of inspired through your travels in Africa? Or
absolutely, yeah.
Can you tell us about that, and have you been able to get it up and running?
Well, music has taken me into the homes of very rich people, and like insanely rich people, and also into the huts and shacks of insanely poor people in this world. And let's just say that the current things that are going on with America and the world are quite upsetting and heartbreaking, what my government is doing. And I'm just one guy, and I really don't want to die of a broken heart because I got a lot to do. And so in my travels, I know guitar collectors with 500 guitars. And in Rwanda, there's a guy working with street orphans, and he's got 500 kids who don't have parents, and he's trying to teach them to read and write, and he's trying to teach them guitar, and he's got one guitar. So there's an imbalance that I personally can address a little bit. I have a little bit of clout in the guitar world, and everybody knows me who makes guitars. So I'm seeking to get donated instruments, strings, and other musical basics transferred from the West to places where it's needed. And the first shipment went to Papua New Guinea, because if you see the DVD documentary I've done there, which is released with the CD, I recorded with 5 guitar bands from 5 villages. And talk about no infrastructure. Their instruments are really terrible, and they don't have strings. And so now I've outfitted all those guys. And it's my small way to do good.
The donated instruments, where are they coming from? Are they coming from the guitar companies themselves, or are you working with a network of musicians now who, when they change their strings or say, I can't use this guitar on stage anymore?
I'm taking individual donations of material, instruments. I'm also working towards getting nonprofit status this year, so I can start soliciting financial donations so that I can approach a guitar company and say, look, I need you to make me 100 bare bones guitars that function. They're not fancy, but they're going to function. And so I can start really getting some, because my feeling is, and I hope that you don't get sued for my saying this, but every time you create one new musician, that's one less criminal, except for Michael Jackson.
It would be interesting to hear another musical sample, maybe taking into consideration some of the other places you've been and what that has brought into your music.
Okay.
Perhaps, as you say, some of your African adventures or Pacific adventures.
Well, Reunion Island is an interesting place because it's a place where African rhythm and Indian rhythm have met under French colonialism. So it's a beautiful permutation of rhythm. And the most sophisticated harmony culture on the planet is Europe. The most primitive rhythm culture on the planet is Europe. And so all African music, instead of just having one tempo, there's always 2 and 3. So instead of just a jaunty sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, one side is going, let's see, and the other side is, and all the creative work involves fooling around with the listener's brain chemistry to tip them over to 2 and tip them back to 3 with simple subdividing and fooling around with 2s and 3s and 4s and 6s. And in reunion, it's one step higher because it's flipped over so that this is a half a beat later. So it comes out like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1. And so the loud thing is happening in the unexpected place. So it's, when I play live, I use this box for a minute to train the audience. Otherwise, it's going to sound like chaos. So I actually do this thing with, I'll do it very briefly.
Now, what is this called you're sitting
This is
on?
a cajon, and it's just a box of wood, no electronics. And I just use it to keep a tempo. And I actually have the audience start an pa of tac, 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 tac. And then I just take them through some numbers that prove that 1, 2, 3, 4 is nothing more than grunting. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the same thing as And so something like this. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And a little bit of that just to kind of loosen them up, because doof music, Britney Spears kind of music, is designed by marketing people and psychologists with a view towards making people stupid. Music's original value in evolution is it makes you smarter. That's why people play, that's why people play music. So, let's see, what have I done with my picks? I'm going to retune real quick and give you a little sample of that and how it applies.
Yeah.
So, the European waltz never really got farther than this. It's okay, And in Latin America, it got about this far. You start to get a 2 feel a little bit. And this is reunion. Now it's flipped over. 1, 2, 3. Tu connais Grévière. Et tu connais même la cadère. Et que la prière, qu'on se la fait. Nanahen, tu connais pas vraiment ton chomponga. La mando, c'est ça. This sort of a very groovy rhythm. And actually, it's the music from there and the rhythm from there is so liberating, it made me realize a waltz and a shuffle are the same thing.
Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. If you have both of this going on, so it can be, a blues can be, or it could be, so in other words, I'm tapping a waltz, but I'm playing. Or I can make it full waltz. So that's very liberating, because music tradition is an illusion. It's made up of individual musicians, each one of which is trying to push their limit. So for me, a music tradition is a great place to learn some music, learn how to play an instrument a little bit, but then you should do something with it. I'm very disappointed in all the pop stars. They're very lazy, creatively. They really are lazy. They're timid and lazy. If Robert Johnson was alive in 1967, he'd be playing with a wah-wah pedal, and if he was alive today, he'd be a hip-hop artist. His records are a snapshot. They're not the guy's whole life. So for me, I love his songs, for example, but I do not play them the way he played it on August 19th, 1937 once. So for me, using this rhythm means you can take a blues and really go out with it.
Okay. You say you're disappointed in pop musicians. Are you also disappointed in contemporary blues musicians, what they're doing with the whole tradition?
Can I really be risky here?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. I'm old enough to come from a time when celebrity and accomplishment were related. They are no longer so related. Celebrity is created now by big companies. There's trend spotters in high schools looking for the next cool thing so it can be repackaged and remarketed back to the kids. It's not like the old days when kids could come up with something of their own. The world has changed quite a lot. So for me, there are a lot of false things about fame and celebrity and the momentum of celebrity. So I'm not afraid of celebrities. If I met Eric Clapton, you know what I'd say to him? Eric, so we've had a drink now, we've talked for 5 minutes. Can we talk here? Why have you been so lazy? You can do whatever you want with whatever musician in the world you want, in any studio for as long as you want, for as much money as you want. How about some ideas here? Instead of just walking around in the same circle. Now, I know I'm taking a big risk saying that. I don't want to offend anybody. But I'm not afraid of celebrity. And I think the higher up you go in the music business, first of all, the nicer you should be. Not the more of a jerk, but you should actually become a better person. And finally, it's sad when the first album has all the urgency of your life and the second album is songs about what a drag it is to be famous. It's boring. So I say to Sting and all the guys, Eric, you name it, Carlos Santana, step out of the box or something. Look at Frank Zappa. That guy continually evolved his music, and maybe he wasn't as popular as the other guys, but you got to sleep at night. I can sleep very well at night.
I think that's a good note to close on. We're going to have to close it because we're out of time, Bob. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck on all your future projects.
Thanks. Okay. Well, I've worked in over 60 countries, and all around the world I observe the way people play guitar, and I observe the way some people in the West really struggle to play guitar. So I want to show you a couple of things that I think every musician should know how to do, because for me, notes and chords and scales is only 20% of music. What's the other 80%? Half of it is rhythm and groove, and the other half of it is a simple thing that people don't talk about too much, and it's the relationship between how you feel emotionally and what you're doing about it with your muscles when you play. So let's talk first about rhythm. Western musical culture, European musical culture is actually a little bit strange because everybody wants to play lead guitar, nobody wants to play rhythm. And so there's this kind of sports attitude to the thing where the guy who gets to the end of the song first wins. And in fact, a lot of Western guitar players, their rhythm is a little bit weak. And I'm here to tell you, especially if you're under 30 years old, if you play a lot of notes, you're going to be surrounded by a lot of guys. If you want to have a girlfriend, it's rhythm. So next time you pick up your guitar, I challenge you to play for 5 minutes in this key, which means get a groove going, and the minute you feel yourself getting bored, realize there's no such thing as a bored person, just a boring person. So if you're bored, it's because you're boring, so it's your job to get interesting. So you start a groove. And if you're of normal intelligence, pretty soon you're going to get bored. So you start working for variation. I challenge you to do that for 5 minutes before you start playing guitar every day. It'll just tighten up your grooves and make you relax more. And look for variations. Because a good solo, if you took away all the notes and you just had clicks, a bad solo doesn't tell a story, but a good solo still tells a story in the phrasing. So, I'd like to take you through a couple of taps now that every guitar player should know how to do. Every rhythm in this world really is only 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's your mind that puts it into groups. And there's two things that cause the grouping. One, the internal stimulus. That's you deciding what the groups are going to be. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the external stimulus is the thing you might hear that might sound different than 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to demonstrate that for you because I want to show you that my goal is to help you be a stronger musician. So the stronger the outside stimulus, the stronger you have to be in your belief about what it really is. So let's take two hands, and I'm just going to give you the sound that makes you think I'm doing groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to change something in your brain chemicals to make you think you're hearing groups of 4. I know it's still 3. If you want to feel what it feels like to get stronger, then all you have to do to make this illusion less chaotic is tap your foot. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's just a listening exercise to show you that syncopation calls upon you to pay more attention to the moment and make your own internal rhythmic clock stronger. Nothing has killed the rhythmic clock more than the drum machine. People are getting a weak clock and they can't hold time inside themselves anymore. So these things will make you a stronger guitar player and will get you a girlfriend. So we begin by taking two hands and making 3s. Like this. Starting out with 1, 2, 1, 2. Now all we're going to do is change the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what can you do externally to increase the illusion of 3? Accenting every other one. Okay? You should be able to have a conversation while you do this. Some people will try to talk and suddenly it's like must talk, must play, and both software programs crash. So we have the only computer that can make itself better. And so the idea is to get your skills up so you don't crash. So you really know you know it if you can have a conversation while you're doing it. Let's do the same beat but with more difficult neurology. Okay? Now let's do it with your leg and your chest. So we start with 2s. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Always alternating, which means every other accent has to be louder. You should start to feel the sensation of your brain splitting into 2 because the sounds sound like 2 different things. 1, 2, but you want them to be 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The next version would be the silent hand. You start with your dominant hand. Once you get it going, you play your dominant hand only in the air, and look what happens. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. These are all things you just have to work on your own. You spend a lot of time sitting in traffic. You can always tap on the dashboard. Okay, let's do it one harder now with the foot and the hand. So the foot is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If you nod your head a little bit, it helps. Okay? That's as far as we can go with one rhythm. All of African music and all of blues is based in 2 rhythms all the time, 3 and 2. So we'll keep the arithmetic to a minimum. If you're going to play 2 and 3 at the same time, they're going to make a pattern, but you should know what the pattern is. The hand that's playing twice is playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The hand that's playing 3 times is playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you put them together, they both play on 1, nothing happens on 2. 3, 4, 5 is alternate, and nothing happens on 6. But as soon as you hear the pattern, you can forget about the numbers. So it's like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, how does this work for blues? This gives you both sides. So you could go dum, bum, 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 or you could go bum, 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 ba, dun, da, dun, da, dum, bum, bum, ba, bum, ba, dun, da, dun, dun. And in other words, a waltz and a shuffle are the same thing through the magic of 6. So let's do this with a little bit more difficult steps. So let's try your leg and your chest, where both means both of them. And then it's going to be both leg, chest, leg, like this. And when you're doing this, make a noise with your mouth every time you hit your chest. This is all to get you independent, to split your brain in half so that you get stronger holding it together in one brain and you don't have a mess on the floor. If you go a little further with that, then you take the foot in the hand. So that's going to be both foot, hand, foot, both foot, hand, foot, both foot, hand, foot. Music's original purpose in evolution is to make people smarter. But Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson, all that kind of American doof-doof music where the hi-hat part goes stupid, 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 that kind of music is meant to make people stupid. It's not really done by musicians. It's done by marketing people, psychologists, and accountants. So